Welcome to episode 4 of the Relationship series. This week I'm joined by Dr. Keith Blevens from the USA, who is a psychologist. Keith works with businesses, organizations. He helps professionals, executives, individuals, couples, and families, and explains how we experience reality. So, Keith, this is an audio series that I'm doing with different people, and I know that you have a unique way of looking at things. And I know you've worked with many couples, and relationships have come up probably in your sessions, I'm sure, over many times. I guess just to get the ball rolling, what's probably been the one thing that's been the most impactful for your clients in terms of them having more connected relationships, better relationships?
Well, I think everyone is looking for more connection, and more a working connection with everyone that they're in a relationship with. And what gets in the way of that is people forgetting that they're thinking, and that the people they're in a relationship with they're in their thinking. So there's an elusive kind of truth that people are living. You're not living in a relationship. You're living in the feeling of the way you're thinking about who you're talking to or who you're in a relationship with. And that's a truth that will continually recenter the person and allow them to approach life from a reality rather than a personal reaction, unnecessary thinking, judgmental thinking. Those are the things, and a host of other things like that create disconnect and problems in any relationship. There's nothing you can't. So that's what it is. That's the key to productive communication and relationships that work. Has to do with the way you understand how thinking works.
That's really interesting, Keith. Could you give us a bit more information by what you mean, or could you elaborate on what you mean by people in relationships? I think you said they are in the thinking about the relationships.
Well, they're like, if you're talking to someone and you have, you're bored by them, you're reacting to them, you're finding that they're not connecting with you, and that can look like a them thing. And so now you're trying to think, how do I get them to be more interesting or to meet my needs better? So then you think about that. So there's the basic misperception that the feeling of boredom or reaction is determined by them leads you astray. And the more astray, and that busies your mind up. So now you got more on your mind about them, and it doesn't look like that it has anything to do, that what you're experiencing has anything at all to do with your thinking. It has to do with them. That trap, that misunderstanding, that simple but very common, you go in and out of that. Everybody does. But if you've got a solution to that issue, then you've got leverage on making every moment that you're dealing with someone more effective, because you're understanding that your thinking is what's creating your feeling. And that's a truth that you can't deny. It'll recenter you and recalibrate you to be present in the moment in a relationship, present in the moment in a conversation, present in the moment in any kind of issue or anything that comes up. You can get intelligent insights and wisdom if you understand that the feeling you're feeling is coming from the thinking you're thinking in the moment. If you don't have that, which is you leave reality. And when you leave reality, you leave effectiveness behind, you leave understanding behind, you leave compassion behind, you leave all the kinds of things that you need to have to be relationship ready and relationship prone. And that's how you improve your effectiveness in relationships, is you wake up, you see how you're experiencing your relationships is coming from the way your thinking is happening all the time. It's not just in relationships. You're living in the feeling of your thinking your whole life. And that's a very comforting, centering, validating truth that'll bring you back to the present moment. That gives you leverage. Without that, you break with reality and you go into your opinions, your judgments, your reactions. And those, when your footing is in unreality, you have no grounds for complaining that the other guy is not showing up, because you're not showing up either. And that now, in an understanding of how that works, that teaches you to be more patient and more compassionate. Without the understanding, you get frustrated, upset, judgmental, and you're perfectly fine feeling that way, because it's got nothing to do with you or your thinking. That's got to do with the how they are. So it's the illusion that your feelings are not coming from your thinking in the moment that tricks you and makes for you being ineffective and ineffectual in your relationships with people. That is by far the most value. It's the only thing you need to know to sharpen your skills and teach you to be, a person capable of having a relationship, and a person capable of gaining ground in your relationship. You need to know where your feelings are coming from, moment to moment to moment to moment. Everybody is exactly the same in that respect. You can't change that, but you can awaken to it and awaken to it and awaken again to it. Every time you awaken to it, you'll get new thinking, you'll get new, you'll gain ground, you'll become more conscious, and that's what will benefit you in your life and in your connection with not only with your connection not only in relationship, but your connection to life is deepened every time you know how this works, that you're living in the feeling of your thinking. It's a very centering, it's an absolute constant that's going on. Whether you remember it constantly, nobody does. But every time you see it, I guarantee you, it will help you. There's guaranteed psychological welfare and benefit from being present in the moment.
So what would you say to people who say that they understand that, they're not feeling their partner, but they're thinking about their partner, or they're not feeling their relationship, they're thinking about the relationship? What would you say to someone who says, that's all well and good, Keith, but my relationship is causing me to have certain thoughts, or my partner is causing me to have certain thoughts? which then make me feel unhappy or unsatisfied?
Well, I would take that chance to point out this principle and how it works, because they already know, they've already suspected. This is not unknown to them, that they've noticed. You can't be alive without noticing that your feeling is coming from your thinking in the moment. Everyone has picked up on that. But whether it's understood as an absolute, whether it looks like, that's true, but there's exceptions. Like I had an experienced teacher say to me not long ago, they said, oh my gosh, she says, you're saying it's 100%. And I said, oh, absolutely. She said, I've got holdouts. It's not 100% for me. It's maybe 80-20. She said, 80% of my feeling is coming from my thinking in the moment, but I've got 20%. There's no way that's happening. And right where that 20% was, is where all of her problems were. She had no movement on those things because they were repetitive, reactive experiences that she was having that seemed to her to be problematic, and they were based in her relationships with other people, or her relationships, her memories from the past. She was what we call outside in, meaning she thought her feelings were not coming from her thinking in the moment in those instances. And it's those instances where we have holdouts, where we are guaranteed we will have psychological problems. That's where we're neurotic. That's where we're reactive. That's where we're unreasonable. That's where we lose track of the truth. And when we do, we pay. And the price we pay is suffering, psychological suffering. Guaranteed, because you're not in reality, you're in a fiction. Your outside in is a fiction. Doesn't work that way, never has, can't. Even if you think it does, it doesn't. Sometimes we call that flat earth thinking, because it looks like it's flat, but it's not really flat. There was a time when people thought we lived on a platter. It was a flat earth. Now we know not true. Still looks that way, but we've doubted the appearance of it. And when you doubt the appearance more and more and more, and you get this, what we call pick a paradigm of how it really works, something happens inside of you that your holdouts get revealed. And you get insights, and you get change, and you get new thinking where you've had old stuck thinking. And your mind opens up, and you change, you grow, you develop. There are places where you do that already, but we're all underachievers in terms of the profundity and the value and the possibility of living in a stream of insights on a day, more or less on a day-to-day basis, except for when you go outside in.
If you don't mind, I would love for you to share an example from your own life, if you wouldn't mind, just to bring some of that to life. Is there anything you'd be willing to share of how you've seen this and an example of how this has played out in your own life?
Oh, absolutely. Well, when I first started understanding this, the logic of this, and how it was relentless, and how it worked, it began to kind of pin me down. And one of my colleagues said, "This paints you into a corner." And I was having one of these really troubling moments in my own marriage. I've been married 37 years. We're deeply in love. We hardly ever have any disagreement. We learn every day. And our intimacy, our laughter, our connection is just blossoming and blossoming and blossoming. It's amazing. But I'm recalling back about 5 years ago, there was one instance where my wife was trying to tell me something, and I just thought she was being, I thought she was being an idiot. I thought she was just lame, didn't understand the way the world worked. She just had a miscomprehension about the world, and I knew it, and I wasn't going to pay any attention to her. And so as she would press on with trying to make this point with me, and I pressed back, and she was just like the tide. She was just hanging in there, coming back with it. Well, eventually, I remember I kind of yelled out, "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it." And I threw up my hands. And right at that instance, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, Keith, it occurred to me, the insight hit me. Where's this feeling coming from? Is this coming from her? Or is this coming from the way you're thinking right now? And it just stopped me in my tracks, and it was like somebody slammed on the brakes, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is coming from the way I'm thinking. This feeling's coming. I saw it in a moment, and this is one of the worst moments of our relationship history, and it woke me up, and she started to respond to what I said. I didn't want to hear it. And I said, no, wait. She said, what? I said, no, wait. And she looked at me puzzled, and I said, I don't know, like something's happened here. I think I could really, if you don't mind, would you mind saying again what you've been trying to say for the past several hours? I think I could honestly listen to it. She looks at me like, you've got to be kidding me. You haven't listened to me at all. I said, no, if you don't mind, just say it one more time. And all of a sudden, my head had cleared of all of my opinions and all my judgments and all my reactions and all my thinking. You see, this is what I'm saying, is that my thinking got out of the way. Because I saw that it was my thinking that was creating my feeling. It wasn't that that clears your head of the outside-in illusion that your feeling is not coming from your thinking in the moment. Seconds before, if you'd asked me, where's your feeling coming from, I would have said, it's coming from my lame wife, for Pete's sake. Now shut up and let me tell her what's wrong with her. Well, that argument completely and totally blew up. And I had nothing in my head. And I just quieted down. And I could really listen without anything being in there to be afraid of. Because I had no fear. So now she says the same thing again. And all of a sudden, everything she said, which is just exactly what she'd been saying for hours, it all was unbelievably user-friendly. It was like she had been hanging in there, telling me over and over in very specific and incisive ways exactly what I needed to hear. And she was being so helpful to me that I was shocked and humbled. I couldn't believe that she had taken such care there wasn't a word out of place with what she was offering. It was just pure. And it just knocked my knees out from under me, and I just felt so grateful that I had a person in my life who would take such time to to deal with me when I was being such a jerk that it really touched me deeply. And it was all user-friendly. Every single word, every single element, every single thing was all to my good. It was all, now I had to change my mind about what I was fighting her over, but big deal. Like, she just could see that I needed to change my mind about something, and she just wouldn't have it until I did, you know? So, what's the shame in that? Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has to change their mind about something every day, you know? Well, this was my turn, but it just hadn't shown up as being that moment for me until I had that insight of where my feeling was actually coming from in the moment. That took away all obstacles to insight and change.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it kind of points to the fact that, or from what I see, that we can all get caught out from time to time. And even though you and your wife had been teaching this for so long, that you had temporarily got caught out, but returned back to the fact of that you were just feeling what you were thinking in that moment, as opposed to feeling what she was saying.
And I want to underline something, because it's not an occasional thing. That happens to me every day that I go outside in, and it happens to every single person listening to this. So this is not an accomplishment kind of process where that you outgrow your need to learn and change your mind. You will never outgrow that need. That need is your privilege to change your mind. It's a boon to you to change your mind and drop what you were thinking before and learn something new. That's endless. That's what actually slows us all down. If we were all less committed to our previous thinking and our fear that it engenders, we would all be living more and more and more in insights. But if you're living in insights, you're going to be dropping non-insightful thinking, because we're full of it. The civilization is loaded up with ignorance and misunderstanding about where their feelings are coming from, and we're guilty of it too. So we're all sharing this message because it's such a wonderful truth, and we all belong to the human mind and the human community here. And it's not an occasional thing. You never outgrow your need for dropping your ego thinking. That's an amazing and wonderful thing. So I just want to underline that, because there's not enough humility about this. There's not enough helpfulness about it. There's not enough understanding about the way this works. It's not. I'm not going to get on top of having my head empty so I can just be learning 24/7. It's just not a realistic hope for me, or for any of you that are listening to this. It's much more realistic to be a learner rather than have it all figured out and be accomplished. Like it's not an accomplishment paradigm. It's a learning paradigm. It's an evolution. The evolution of thinking is endless. The living of the truth of that is eternal. So there's no end to what you might learn going in this direction.
Well, thanks, Keith. We've pretty much run out of time for today. I'm sure we could have carry on talking for hours. Where can people, if they are interested in learning more about you or learning about the paradigm that you talk about, or getting in contact with you, how might people do that?
All they have to do, my phone number in the States, 360-466-2300, or my email, Keith, Keith, last name Blevens, Blevens, @gmail.com. The easiest ways to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to share anything I can, in any way that I can, is effective to be of service to the public.
Fantastic. And I know you've got a book coming out next year, so I'm sure people should keep an eye out for that too.
Absolutely.
People can get hold of me at uncusjane.co.uk and facebook.com/uncusjaneltd. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you guys on the next call. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.